The ethics of zoos, debating animal captivity in the modern era. Welcome to our journey through one of the most debated topics in animal conservation, the role and ethics of zoos. Are they vital sanctuaries for saving endangered species? Or are they outdated relics that prioritize human entertainment over animal welfare? Let's dive into this thought-provoking debate to explore the complex history, arguments, and innovations shaping the future of zoos. The story of zoos begins long before the modern era. Ancient civilizations, including those in Egypt, China, and Rome, kept exotic animals as symbols of power and prestige. These menageries were private collections designed to impress royalty and nobility. Fast forward to the 18th and 19th centuries, and zoos shifted into public spaces, coinciding with the rise of urbanization. These early public zoos, such as the London Zoo, established in 1828, were primarily forms of entertainment. Cages were small, and little was understood about the psychological needs of animals. However, the 20th century marked a shift as conservation and education became central themes. Zoos began to rebrand, positioning themselves as facilities offering refuge to endangered species and fostering public appreciation for wildlife. But as we shall see, not all zoos have successfully left their exploitative past behind. For advocates of zoos, these institutions serve several critical functions in today's world. First and foremost, zoos contribute significantly to conservation efforts. Many of the animals we see in zoos are part of breeding programs aimed at saving species on the brink of extinction. Take the giant panda, for example. In the 20th century, their numbers were dangerously low, but zoos collaborated with conservationists to facilitate captive breeding that helped increase their population. Zoos also create opportunities for scientific research. By studying animal behavior, biology, and genetics up close, researchers gain valuable insights that inform conservation strategies in the wild. Beyond that, zoos play an irreplaceable role in education. For many children and families, zoos offer a chance to see exotic and native wildlife up close, an experience that often inspires curiosity and compassion for the natural world. For instance, school programs hosted by zoos raise awareness about wildlife preservation and even inspire young visitors to pursue careers in zoology or activism. From a more practical standpoint, zoos also provide economic benefits. Revenue from tickets often helps fund far-reaching conservation projects and supports local economies. Finally, certain species are entirely reliant on human-managed breeding and habitat programs for survival. Without some zoos, animals such as the California condor or the Arabian oryx might no longer exist today. While zoos have their champions, critics challenge their ethical and practical validity, pointing out several concerns. The most pressing issue is animal welfare. Regardless of how modern and humane a zoo claims to be, confinement can never replicate the dynamic conditions of the wild where the animals hunt, roam, and interact freely. Enclosures, no matter how well designed, restrict natural behaviors. This often results in what is known as zoochosis, a condition where animals display repetitive or abnormal behaviors due to stress or boredom. Ethically, many argue that it is unfair and presumptuous for humans to confine animals for their purposes, whether it's for entertainment, education, or even conservation. Elephants, for instance, roam vast distances in the wild, yet in captivity, they are often confined to relatively small spaces, leading to physical and psychological distress. Another concern involves unregulated or poorly managed zoos. Around the world, there are facilities that neglect animal welfare, either due to lack of resources or prioritizing profit. In these cases, animals suffer immensely, and the facilities contribute little to conservation or education goals. Critics also claim that trying to save species through zoos may divert attention from addressing the root problems, such as deforestation, poaching, and climate change, that are causing species to become endangered in the first place. Without solving these issues, animals face extinction in the wild despite conservation efforts in zoos. As technology advances, New ways of connecting people with wildlife are emerging, replacing the need for physical captivity. Virtual safaris are one such innovation. These immersive digital experiences use virtual reality, VR, to allow people to travel to some of the planet's most remote ecosystems, observing animals in their natural habitats without disturbing them. Similarly, augmented reality and advanced 3D models bring animals to classrooms and museums. These tools simulate an up-close, interactive experience, helping teach scientific concepts about wildlife without requiring live animals. Live wildlife cams, increasingly popular on platforms like YouTube, stream real-time footage from wilderness reserves, offering an ethical and engaging way to observe animal behavior. Wildlife documentaries, such as those produced by Planet Earth or National Geographic, also serve as powerful storytelling tools to inspire action and empathy, bridging the gap between education and entertainment. While these alternatives are not without limitations, they can't fully replicate seeing an animal in person. They provide an avenue to experience wildlife ethically and sustainably, especially for an increasingly virtual society. Across the globe, zoos vary greatly in their standards and practices, highlighting the spectrum between ethical and unethical approaches. Ethical zoos, like the San Diego Zoo in the United States, emphasize open enclosures that mimic natural habitats and offer mental stimulation for animals. Such facilities often comply with international certification programs from organizations like the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, WAZA, ensuring high welfare standards. On the other end of the spectrum lie unregulated or exploitative zoos. Stories of facilities housing malnourished animals in cramped cages occasionally surface, tarnishing the reputation of the entire industry. For example, small roadside zoos operating without adequate oversight often prioritize profit over animal care, using unsustainable practices like breeding animals solely to attract visitors. Highlighting such differences underscores how critical it is to research and choose responsibly when supporting zoo conservation efforts. So where do zoos go from here? Many experts believe zoos must fundamentally transform if they want to remain relevant in an era dominated by ethical concerns and technological alternatives. This transformation might involve moving away from the traditional model of animal displays towards sanctuaries and research centers focused entirely on animal welfare and conservation. Some forward-thinking zoos have already made strides in this direction. They emphasize rehabilitation programs for injured wildlife, release back into the wild wherever possible, and
enemies for educating.
The larger question remains: can zoos fully evolve to balance animal well-being with human-centered goals? Or are they destined to be replaced by more ethical and sustainable solutions like digital engagement and habitat preservation in the wild? The ethics of zoos present no simple answers. On one hand, they've sparked critical advances in breeding, saved species from extinction, and raised public awareness about the importance of wildlife conservation. On the other hand, zoos inevitably constrain animals' freedom, sometimes inflicting harm under the guise of education or entertainment. As we look ahead, the challenge lies in creating a system where animal welfare is paramount, while still inspiring communities to connect with and protect nature. So, what do you think? Are zoos a necessary tool for conservation, or is it time for us to phase them out completely in favor of ethical alternatives? Thank you for joining us on this exploration. Together, through education and action, we can strive to create a compassionate future for all living beings.